Let me begin by informing you about the result of the extraordinary meeting that we held this morning. It was an S&D group meeting on the emergency procedure for the Omnibus. The position of our group on the emergency procedure will be that we will be voting against the urgency procedure for this file. And the reason is essentially that we haven't managed to find an agreement among the pro-European majority in this House. We've been working during recent days and weeks on this since the EPP unilaterally presented this proposal for the urgency procedure. So we've been working on trying to craft an agreement on cooperation with regard to the entire Omnibus package among all pro-European forces. And at this moment, there is no agreement on this, and that's why we are going to be voting against the proposal for an urgency procedure. And I'd like to send out a clear message to the sector. We're talking about the procedure here. We're not talking about the content of the Omnibus file. We are in the front line when it comes to trying to find the best possible solutions carried by a pro-European majority to simplify bureaucracy. You all know our position. We want to help our businesses in Europe to comply with European legislation, and we firmly believe that there is a wide area on which we can negotiate in order to achieve this simplification. But we're not voting on the content at the moment. We're voting on the urgency procedure. And given that we don't currently have an agreement on formal and structured cooperation between the four pro-European groups, we've decided to vote against. Communication channels are still open. We're still ready to negotiate, to work together, to achieve a stable majority in this House for the Omnibus file. On Thursday, we will be holding another vote on the Stop the Clock files, and then we're going to be continuing negotiations on the content of the Omnibus file. And we're open to continuing to negotiate so that we can come up with a joint position. But as I say, given that there is no formal cooperation agreement between the four groups, we will be voting against. Now, moving on with other issues, we've just held a debate on the Council conclusions, and we heard a clear message from President von der Leyen there with regard to Europe's response to the situation created by this tariff war launched by the United States and President Trump. And the fact is that we've seen a whole series of initiatives coming from the White House, which essentially may well end up producing a trade war. We've also already had tariffs on steel and aluminium. Last week, Trump proposed a 25% tariff on all vehicles. The car industry is one of the 5 sectors that the US president mentioned by name, and he wanted to influence, including copper, steel, aluminium, pharmaceuticals. And then tomorrow we've got the famous so-called Tariff Liberation Day, so we await further announcements there. And we hope that the European Council will present countermeasures in April. President von der Leyen has said that negotiations are beginning with member states. Obviously, I hope that those negotiations are going to include this Parliament. And our group position is very clear. The European Union needs to respond firmly, rapidly, and also in an appropriate and unified manner. We can't have our workers and our economy paying the price. I think there's one thing that we all agree on, which is that a trade war of this kind isn't good for anyone. It's not good for the United States and its economy, and it's not good for the European Union and its economy either. So I think it's time for us to stand up and be firm and, above all, to send out a message to all our business sectors, our workers, our farmers, etc. We need to stand up and say to them that the European Union will be defending its interests, because they are the interests of all of us. So I think we have work to do there. Yesterday, there was a vote in the Environment Committee, which I think is significant, because once again the EPP tried to attack NGOs just for the purpose of trying to undermine their work and the Green Deal. So it's an attack on NGOs, but it's also an attack on the legislative work that we've been doing during recent years. Fortunately, they lost the vote by one vote. It cost them dearly. Legally speaking, the European Parliament can't prevent the Commission decisions on financing, so there's no reason for this objection. And as I say, the result was what it was yesterday. And I'd also say that last week we held a group meeting which included an exchange of views with these NGOs, and NGOs are key to ensuring that society can play a role in the legislative decision-making process. And here there's a campaign that's being undertaken to try and undermine the role of NGOs, and we're going to stand by NGOs and defend their crucial role in legislation. We're going to be defending civil society. And let me conclude by mentioning Wednesday's debate on Hungary. As I said during my plenary intervention, we now have the latest example of Orbán's contempt for fundamental rights and democracy, and the rule of law and democracy need to be restored in Hungary. We continue to show our absolute support to the people of Hungary, and because of this, together with other members of the S&D group, I will be in Budapest on the dates when Pride will be celebrated, in order to send out a message not only to the LGBTI community, but also a message of support to the values of the European Union, which we need to defend now more than ever. Thank you.
Now it's time for your questions.